Welcome, everybody. My name is David Alvarez, and once again, we have interviewed candidates that wish to represent us in the United States Congress. So please take the time to watch these interviews and to hear their responses to the questions that our membership has come up to ask them. And please cast your vote. Your vote will make a difference. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Hello, my name is David Alvarez, and welcome. We are here with Tammy Savoie, Congressional United States of America Congress candidate. Welcome.
Thank you.
We're going to get right into the questions. Number one is a question about Medicare for all. Do you consider healthcare a human right? If so, do you support a public option, Medicare for all, or another progressive system to guarantee healthcare to every American, regardless of income?
I consider healthcare a basic human necessity that a moral country will provide for its citizens. So I believe it's an individual, employee, and government responsibility. And I think that universal health care is the goal, and we need to make that happen. In that vein, I support a Medicare for all or a public option so that people who don't have the money to get ACA or Medicaid or make too much to get on Medicaid can buy into a Medicare or a public option. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you. Our next question is about taxes. What is your opinion of progressive taxation, and how do you view our current usage of sales tax versus income tax, taxation of earned income versus passive income, and the ranges of our current tax brackets?
Okay, so the tax bill that was passed by the Congress is wholly unfair. It supposedly, and a lot of middle class people did get a few extra bucks in their check, which was a good thing in the short run.
Mm-hmm.
It's peanuts compared to what the wealthy are getting and what corporations are getting. So they're getting billions of dollars. The tax cuts for the middle class are going to run out in 8 years. And at that time, the 9th, 10th year, the middle class will be paying more in taxes than they were paying before the tax cut. The tax cut also blew a hole in the deficit and the debt. And now Congress wants to cut benefits so that they can get the revenue that was lost from this tax cut. We lost trillions of dollars in revenue from the tax cut. So now Congress and the leadership in Congress wants to cut Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security benefits. And so in general, it was a bad bill. We need to go back to the drawing board and make sure that we're taxing fairly so that the rich are paying, the very rich, the wealthy are paying their fair share, that we have a tax that's not regressive so that a sales tax hurts the working poor and the poor people with low incomes more because it's a greater percentage of their income, of course. It does nothing to, for the wealthy to add a couple of pennies to everything they buy. It does nothing for them. It brings in revenue, but it's just not a fair tax. So I would be against regressive tax. And as far as the brackets are concerned, I think that we can do better. We can reduce the tax situation. The new tax bill was supposed to make things simpler,
Mm-hmm.
but that is just not the case. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be simpler. The tax brackets are not. What did it reduce to? I think 4 or 5, something like that. I'm not completely sure, but it doesn't do what it purported to do. So I think we have to go back to the drawing board on the taxes.
Okay. Next, we're going to talk about the environment.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the energy sector, Louisiana invests solely in oil and gas. It's also no secret that our politicians are heavily funded by the oil and gas industry, causing them to represent their interests above those of the citizens. Do you believe that our state should be investing in alternative energy? And if so, what will you do specifically to shift our economy to focus more on renewables?
Okay, so Louisiana has ample sunshine and water, rain, and we need to switch to a sustainable energy economy. Now we can do that, and we have the the universities to do that too. Okay, so we need research and we need industry. So we have academia and we have industry, and we need to join those two and come up with a plan and say, okay, in 20 years, where do we want to be with sustainable energy? Do we want it to be 50% of our energy resources, or do we want it to be 75%? But we need to set some goals and work backwards. So at 20 years from now, we want to have 50% of all of our energy coming from solar. Then we make a plan for that. And we make a plan to develop the solar energy industry, which they've already done. I mean, Obama did a really good job with that. And so now solar energy is efficient and affordable, and we just need to get it out there and make a plan to new homes, new office buildings, everything be equipped with solar energy. Lay out a plan for that. And then how are we going to wean ourselves off of oil, okay? And so you make that plan and say, okay, this is what it is, and this is the money we have to put in up front, and this is the money we're going to reap in the end, or the savings we'll reap in the end. And then you have to have the political will to do that. In order to have the political will, you need to elect Congress people who are going to, one, acknowledge climate change, acknowledge that we are losing football fields of coastline every hour, that Plaquemines Parish may be gone, before we know it. We're evacuating people from the lower parishes. So we have to acknowledge that up front and say, there's a reason for this, and it's climate change. And we can do something about it. And there's whole, coastal restoration projects. We need to invest in that, because if we don't, we're going to lose our parishes, our coastal parishes. So I'm all for, sitting down and, doing the nitty-gritty work of figuring out how we're going to do this, making a plan, presenting it to the people, and then getting the legislatures to buy in on it. You need to do that on a state level, but you need, a lot of this is federal funds, and you need to get the federal government on board, basically, to make this a priority. And we're not making it a priority. We got the border wall, that's a priority, okay? So we're losing our coastal parishes instead of, we're focusing on things that, just really have no bearing on the security of the United States. We also need to get with our sister states, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, and Texas. We're all in this together, and we need to join forces, come forward, and say this is a priority for this country. And I would be willing to do that and lead that effort.
Okay. Next is about our public education and colleges in particular. In the United States, the price of a college degree is crippling debt brought upon by the high cost of education and student loans. Will you support legislation to make public universities tuition free?
I will support, we have to find a way to pay for it, but I'm also for, when I went to college, I joined the Air National Guard in Louisiana. And the Air National Guard in Louisiana, if you commit to them and you serve, you get free college tuition for in-state schools, for state schools. You can go to LSU and they will pay your tuition, okay? So I believe that we can partner with the state. We have a lot of needs in our state. I think we can fund tuition for our students, but I think they need to give back. I think they need to provide something in return to the state. At this point, they're adults, 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds. So we want them to go to school. We're going to fund you to go to school. And what can you do? If you're going to teach, we want you to stay in the state and teach. If you're going to be a professional, whether it's an engineer, a fireman, a policeman, you go get your law enforcement degree, engineering degree, and we will pay for that. And then give back to the state. Stay here, work in a state job, give in some kind of way back to Louisiana. That's what I think. We have to have a pact with our young folks to say, we need you, and we're going to help you through this. We don't want you to graduate with debt, but we also need you to build Louisiana after you get your education. That's what I would like to see.
Okay. Next question is about the military. The United States is currently spending over $500 billion on our military budget. This has contributed to regime change and destabilizing the Middle East and other areas of this world. As a member of Congress, you will be able to vote on the distribution of our tax dollars. Are we spending too much money on our military? If so, how would you shift our budgetary focus?
Well, the only bill that has bipartisan support every year is the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act. They pass that every year. It's a bill to fund the military. and they have bipartisan support mostly all the time. There are things that the military would like to cut that Congress won't. So we have bases that the military would like to close. But if it's in your district, you're going to lose jobs, and you don't want to close it. There are platforms, different weapon systems that the military says we don't need these anymore. But if it's in your district, then you don't want to lose those jobs. So I would go to Congress and say, we need to do the right thing here. And if it costs jobs, then we need to see what we can do to help these communities out. Okay. Now, I was in San Antonio when they were going to close the base that I was at, and it was a food fight with the local elected officials and the military people. And the military's like, we have all these bases in San Antonio. It's costing the American taxpayer and the DOD a lot of money. We need to consolidate. We need to close. But the people in San Antonio, like the elected officials, these are jobs we're going to lose here. So what they did was they invested in this small base, and they made it a city base, and they built an industrial park. And around the industrial park, they had they put a new hospital, and they put Walmart and restaurants and Starbucks and everything. And they built up the southeast part of the city, which was basically nothing but this one little base that was kind of just small and a research base. And they turned it into a city industrial park, and the whole southeast of San Antonio has grown. Okay, so that's something, a model that we can use to say, the military wants another round of BRAC closures, which is the Base Realignment and Closure Act. They want another one of those because we have too much land now that the DOD is maintaining, and they say they don't need it. Okay, but this costs money. So I would go to Congress and say, we need to do this. We need to go in. There are some things the military wants to get rid of. We need to go and follow that. Now, with that said, there's a lot of things we can do in the military to cut costs. But I think we need to shift our focus to the State Department. The State Department has been gutted, and having worked with the State Department in the Middle East and doing theater security cooperation in the Central Asian states, in the Middle East, and also in Europe, the State Department is so important, and diplomacy is our first line of defense for our country, and that's the face of America out there, and we need to invest in it, and we're not, and I would definitely change the focus from defensive posture to a diplomatic posture, and I would do that. I would support that immediately.
Okay. Next question is about getting money out of politics.
Yeah.
What methods do you favor or support to combat the corruption of elected representatives caused by the sources from which candidates have to raise money to fund their election campaign?
Well, it's just crazy, and this is my first campaign, so I'm finding just how crazy the money situation is. So the first thing, we need to overturn Citizens United. We need to put it in a constitutional amendment or whatever. But that is a corrupt way to fund our politics. And we need to have very much limited funds for local elections and, federal elections, so that each election has its own limit or cap. And we need to limit we need to have total transparency on who can, on what people are donating and how much they can donate. So there needs to be a cap. So there's a cap on a person, there's no cap on PACs, there's no cap on corporations. That's craziness. And the power of the incumbency to start like with $2 million, that means they basically have no challenge. Who can compete with that? That's just craziness. So we have to get that out, and we can start with doing something with Citizens United. There's also a Make It Fair nonprofit out there that has proposed, it is model legislation that is proposed. You can go to the website, and a lot of states have implemented local laws to limit their local elections, to say we're only going to spend this much money on our local elections. Everybody's going to get airtime and things like that. So I think people also have to take it into their own hands. And we can't, if at first we do local and state, then raise it up to the federal, that's fine. We have to do something, though. It has to change. This is corrupt to the max.
Okay. Next question is about gun control. So in the state of Louisiana, there are no required background checks to purchase a firearm. There is no minimum age to purchase a shotgun or rifle, and there are no required gun permits necessary to purchase a firearm. Do you believe that we should enact common sense gun regulations? And if so, what would you propose in Congress?
Of course. We need absolutely universal background checks. I mean, it's just ridiculous that, to have loopholes means you don't have anything, because if you fear a background check, you just find a way not to have a background check. So it's useless, basically. So we need universal background checks. We need to have some methodology to make sure that people who are dangerous, people with criminal backgrounds, people who are domestic abusers, don't have access to guns. I mean, this is common sense, and these are the folks that go out and commit these atrocious crimes. I think we ought to limit the age limit, and have, people ought to have some training, have to be able, if we keep, I am for limiting the purchases of AR-15s and assault weapons. They're military-style weapons. They are just meant to kill. And, to have a weapon like that in the military, you have to go through a lot. You have to, join the military. You're going to get a full physical. You're going to get a mental health background check. You're going to get a security clearance. You're going to start with classroom training. Then you're going to get your gun, and you're going to be instructed from day one on how to use that. You're going to go to the range, and there will be supervisors all along the line, and if you messed up, you'll be pulled off the line. And once you get that weapon to carry every day is an assessment of whether you can carry that gun the next day. So that commander can pull that gun anytime he or she wants if you don't display the responsibility and accountability. So in the military, it's not a right to carry a gun, it's a privilege, and it is a responsibility, and if you abdicate that responsibility, you get it taken away. And the only way you get it back is if the commander deems you responsible to take it. Now, a lot of times the commander then will send you to a psychologist like myself, and I have done many evaluations on people on whether they can carry a gun, responsible enough to carry a gun, or whether they should never carry a gun again. And we should have something in place for people who, or it shouldn't be up to a dad to say, okay, son, I think you're good now. You take this gun, take this assault weapon, and you're good now. I know you've been having some problems, but I trust you. Look what happens when we do this. So this is common sense, and it's what the military does because the military knows how to handle weapons, okay? We need to do something better. Those are the kind of things I would propose when we go to Congress. Say, look, let's take a look at this. Let's do some anti-violence measures, and let's do some gun safety measures. So.
Okay. Our next question is about legalizing cannabis. Should marijuana be classified as a Schedule I drug alongside cocaine? If not, will you support the Marijuana Justice Act introduced by Senator Cory Booker? The act would deschedule marijuana, include provisions to expunge federal marijuana possession convictions, allow for reduced sentencing, and restrict federal law enforcement money for states with racially disproportionate marijuana arrests.
Yes, to all of that. Basically, marijuana has been legal for white people for a long time. And you may know a lot of people that have smoked marijuana in their youth or in their lifetime, and they're not in jail. But we have a lot of people in jail for marijuana. And so the law's not administered equitably, and we just need to change that. It's a bad law, and we need to deschedule it, and we need to, the people that have been convicted of crimes related to marijuana need to be released of those crimes, basically, or however you do it as a lawyer, whatever. But yeah, that's an easy one.
Okay. Next is about our minimum wage or living wage. Do you feel that the minimum wage should constitute a living wage where someone working 40 hours per week is able to be well above the poverty line? What hourly rate do you feel satisfies this requirement, and how would you propose we implement this wage nationally?
Okay, so of course, $7.25 is not a livable wage, and it hasn't kept up with inflation. So one thing, we have to raise it, okay? And so Louisiana doesn't have a state minimum wage. Now, there are states out there that do. We're not one of them. Some states also tie the minimum wage to the inflation index. We do not do that. So it's up to the federal legislatures to raise the minimum wage to a livable wage. So there were a couple of proposals, two minimum wage increases that our current representative voted no against. So we're never going to get a minimum wage if we don't increase, if we don't change the legislatures. If I go, I will raise the minimum wage. I think the last one they raised it to was minimum $10. 15 is great for New York and California. Both of them have that. I'm not sure it would be good for all of Louisiana, but it has to be livable. So we have to say, okay, where's the bottom line that anybody in the world in the country can live off of $10 or $15, but we have to. The goal is to get to 15. I'm not sure that that's going to be doable in the Congress, so I am going to fight for the livable wage. And the last bill I think was $10, and we didn't $10.25, something like that. We couldn't get a couldn't get a vote on that. So I'm going to fight for that. Whatever the Congressional Budget Office comes up with to raise that minimum, that $7.25 at least to $10.25, I'm going to fight for that, and hopefully get up to 15. Okay. I would also, if the state legislature needs to do something about, the law is that municipalities can't raise the minimum wage here. Okay. So if that New Orleans wanted to raise the minimum wage, we can't. Metairie can't. Covington can't, because if the state doesn't have a minimum wage, then the law basically is that municipalities have to go with what the state does, and the state doesn't have one, so we have to all go with the federal. So if we could change that law in the state, that would be good too, because then you can have Bunkie, Louisiana, have their minimum wage, and Metairie and Covington and New Orleans have their own minimum wage too. That would help out a lot too, but we don't have legislators are that brave, so.
Okay. Last question. This is about going up against an incumbent. So your district, your congressional district, is gerrymandered quite considerably. So it is, and that's obviously a disadvantage for the non-incumbent. I believe the last time a Democrat held the seat, Gerald Ford was president. Well, why are you the best candidate to turn the tide in this incumbent-friendly district?
I think that I am the best candidate because my experience has taught me to fight. Okay, fight for Louisiana, and that's what I'm going to do. So, been in the military. I served in the military for 38 years total. 7 years here in Louisiana National Guard, and 8 more years in the Guard in different states, and 22 years on active duty. I worked with the Congress when I was at the Pentagon. I have reviewed healthcare programs. I have developed healthcare programs from the scratch, from the start up. And I believe that I can go to Congress and make a difference. And I have the experience that no one else that's running has to do that. And I'm ready to do it. I want to serve again, and I'm going to make a great congressperson for the people of Louisiana. That is my goal, to serve again.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Tammy. Now you have an opportunity to look in the camera and speak to Our Revolution membership out in cyberspace.
All right.
The floor is yours.
Well, thank you, everybody, and thanks for tuning in tonight or whenever you watch this. My name is Tammy Savoie, and I'm running to serve as your next Congresswoman from Louisiana's 1st Congressional District. And I believe that I have the experience to fight for you, and I would love to serve as your next Congresswoman from Louisiana. I asked 3 things of you tonight. I need your endorsement. I need your endorsement because I am going to, if you listen to my answers, they were all progressive values. I think that these are the values, you can say they're progressive, but they're American. And I want to fight for American values. All of these things. We are a moral nation, and we need to start acting like it. And that's what I'm going to do when I go to Congress. So I need your endorsement. I want your vote in November. In order for us to win and to take back Congress, and we need to flip Congress, we need to get out the vote in November. The third thing I'm going to ask for is I'm running against deep pockets. I'm on a shoestring budget, and that's okay because we can win. It's been proven we can win on a shoestring budget. but I still have to keep people on staff. So I would ask that you go to my website, tammysavoie.com, learn all about my candidacy, and donate what you can. And no donation is too small, and I appreciate anything that you can give. So thank you again for having me here tonight, and I hope to see you at the polls in November. Thank you. Good night.